Welcome back to the Cannes Film Festival 2023 Parallel Challenge here on Fantasy Film Ball. We are your hosts, Matt and Arnaud.
That means we are watching an equivalent film to all 21 competition titles at Cannes this year. And in this video, we'll be talking about the films Johnny Mad Dog and Black Flies, directed by Jean-Stéphane Sauvaire. This guy was born in France, born in Paris, I believe. He started as an assistant director, and he did a lot of work in France. He worked notably with Gaspard Noé, among other directors. His first film is Johnny Mad Dog, where he won a prize at Un Certain Regard, so a good way to start a career, although his next film he did only in 2017, so nearly 10 years afterwards. And then Black Flies is only going to be his third film. This guy doesn't make movies that often. We chose Johnny Mad Dog because it's his first film and because this one went to Un Certain Regard and won a prize, so we thought, let's kick off his career, let's see what this guy can bring.
Johnny Mad Dog is a film about child soldiers. It's a very difficult subject to approach. And this film is set in an unnamed African country, although it is very much Liberia. The film tells a story of a group of child soldiers acting as rebels, fighting for a cause which is not spoken. No one talks about what these people, what these kids are actually being forced to fight for. We just know that they are fighting, and we are put directly into the action. These child soldiers go from town to town, heading to the capital of the nation, and on the way, they massacre villagers, leaving absolute destruction in their wake wherever they go, killing and killing and killing. The plot of the film is pretty thin, although it mostly centers around the main character being a teenager who is named Johnny Mad Dog, and it's very much a tonal piece. It shows the lives of these child soldiers and a lot of the horrors of post-colonial Africa, where warlords can rule, where people like Coney 2012 can really get a grip and devastate entire regions by enslaving children and forcing them to murder.
From the start, we are thrown into the action with very little context. Of course, you can read up on the film and kind of learn that what the conflict is, and I think that's definitely like intentional in that the film is kind of keeping you a little bit in the dark, the same way that these characters are in the dark as far as their motivations. This is a very micro look at this political situation. Right off the bat, it's a very graphic film, lots of violence, sexual violence too, which is very, very unsettling. Really get a first-hand look at war crimes, essentially like straight up war crimes.
As I said, the plot around that is very thin. It's a lot of very visceral moments, a lot of atmosphere, and that's really what mostly the film is about. It's about making you feel as though you're in it with these kids. As you mentioned, it's very deliberate in not telling you where we are or what they're fighting for, because the kids don't know that. They're children who have been handed a machine gun and dosed up on cocaine and told, go and murder people. They don't know what's happening, and neither should we. Immersing us into this uncomfortable and horrifying world that these children live in, that's where the film succeeds.
Especially since a lot of these characters, I mean, you see them firsthand do some really, really terrible things. This is not, the kind of sad story of Beasts of No Nation, where we see this child being taken from his family, forced to kill his father, but deep down, he's a good guy. He was taken from his family. It wasn't his fault. Here, you're just like put right into the conflict. You see these characters, that they've been led to be brought this way, but at the same time, you see them do some really heinous, terrible, unforgivable acts. It's really hard to sympathize with them from the get-go because of that. This is kind of like a group, a Lord of the Flies-ish group of young people that are given like an excuse to be complete monsters. The war effort for them is a mentality, a way for them to essentially forgive any act they do, for them to just kind of try to feel as powerful as they can. And the film definitely gains some meaning by the end when the war ends and we see how the war boys are now more vulnerable because they are identified for their crimes.
I definitely felt that this take on the subject matter was pretty well handled overall, but it's a really hard subject matter to talk about and to approach in a film. The thing that I would complain about, as you said, it kind of dehumanizes the soldiers. Sometimes it seems like it forgets that these child soldiers are children who are as much victims as the people that they are killing. These children have been forced into this situation. That's a heartbreaking situation. I mean, you referenced Beasts of No Nation. It's very hard not to make that comparison. While on one hand, saying that these children did no wrong is also an oversimplification. It sometimes feels as though there's a lack of empathy for the fact that these kids are kids.
The film tries to give, a kind of a both sides of the story approach where we kind of intercut the story of these child soldiers with the story of a civilian child. But I guess I'm mixed about how the film kind of ends up using the backdrop to tell the story, how morally gray that is to essentially use this in order to just kind of showcase lots of heinous actions on screen in a fairly brutal and graphic way. I'm still left a little bit wondering if all of that was really the best way of showcasing that message. I wish there was a bit more moral ambiguity, and I don't think Sauvaire, this is a difficult subject matter, and I think he did a fairly admirable job. I really think this could have been better than it currently is.
Sauvaire's new film, Black Flies, is an American movie that stars Sean Penn. And this film follows a student who rides along with an experienced paramedic in New York City. It's taken from a script that was on the Blacklist, which, Arnaud, I know you read. And the question I have is, the premise sounds a lot like Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead. Does that actually read on screen?
I've not seen Bringing Out the Dead, so I can't speak to that. But what I will say is that this is not too dissimilar in tone to Johnny Mad Dog in a really weird way, and that this is like back to back to back really, really intense, like crazy things. This film essentially follows paramedics as they go from one emergency situation to another in Harlem. Paramedics' jobs can vary immensely depending on where they are located. Here, the film takes place in the heart of Harlem. There is some really disturbing things going on. There are some scenes that you read within the screenplay that remind you of some of the more horrifying scenes from Seven. You really feel the intensity and the kind of trauma that is being inflicted on the paramedics trying to deal with these situations and the moral dilemmas that come around them. I thought the script was excellent. Sauvaire is definitely, based, even if I wasn't too, high on Johnny Mad Dog, I can see him being a good director for this project. I think Sean Penn is great casting, actually. I think he could fit that character quite well. That being said, I'm not expecting this to win any prizes at Cannes. With American films, it's always difficult to win prizes in European film festivals. I think this will be no exception. Maybe a jury prize, the same way that Police or Les Miserables, which are like, they're not paramedic dramas, but they're cop dramas.
Procedurals.
Kind of similar. Yeah, procedurals is the word I'm looking for. So there's a bit of a parallel there I can make, but honestly, I'm not predicting this to win anything, even if the reviews will be good. Think good time.
What I really liked about Johnny Mad Dog, the intensity of the filmmaking, the way that Sauvaire created atmosphere that really draws you in and makes you feel discomfort and dread. And I think in a paramedic thriller where you're watching paramedics rush from situation to situation that are life or death, that is where I think Sauvaire's strengths will really shine. But that said, from the description that you gave there, I do wonder if there could potentially be backlash just in the way that the film portrays the community of Harlem, portrays that. I would assume this goes into like fentanyl abuse at some point, because obviously in the current climate, there is a lot of opioid addiction on the streets. I wonder if this is a bad time for the movie to come out, especially with the recent incident in which a homeless man was murdered on the subway in New York City.
Now that you kind of mentioned it, perhaps there is a problematic angle to this film that is not like as evident to me in the script, that might be more evident on screen. What I can say though is that I think the script is fantastic. If it's directed kind of in that Sauvaire way that we've seen in Johnny Mad Dog, where he doesn't shy away from the violence, the gore, it can be something that is really striking and will leave a mark with audiences.
Well, you've got me excited about the film for sure. I'm excited just from watching Johnny Mad Dog. I think tonally he's the right fit for this. But thank you so much for joining us for our Cannes Parallel Challenge today. Make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of our Cannes updates. We're going to be putting out a blitz of videos during the Cannes Film Festival, so make sure you follow along to find out who is going to be our Palme d'Or. Thank you so much for watching.